Galactic.
Hey, everybody. If you've listened to this podcast much, you'll probably know that I tend to journal a lot, and The Great Beginner Galactic is kind of an extension of that journal in many ways. Something that I've been noticing lately is that some days when I sit down to journal, I just really have nothing to talk about. And then on other days, there's just so much to write that I can't even find the time to get it all down on paper. I got to thinking about this, and it's not just the most amazing days where I have a lot to write about. So I wondered, what's the difference between a day where I have a lot to write about and a day where there's just really nothing? And then I came to this conclusion that to have an interesting day, you really don't have to do something amazing. You just kind of have to do something different than what you'd normally do, because the normalcy is the status quo. The routine is the status quo, and it's just not fun to write about the same thing every day. So there are times when it's just fun to do something different. And then you have something to write about. I mean, it could be, it could be anything different that's not in your routine. And if that different thing turns out to be amazing, then hey, even better, you know? And then today I did something different. Taxes. And let me tell you, it was not interesting. Oh, I got all the way through it. I started out using TurboTax, and then I realized they don't work with the government anymore. So I went over to apparently the federal government has their own tax website now where you can use their resources their proxies to file your taxes. And I got all the way through it. It probably took me like 45 minutes just to run through the TurboTax before I realized I had to pay a lot of money to do it. And then I probably spent another hour on the federal government's website. I got to the end and I'm like, yes, I'm done. I'm ready for my tax refund. And then I went to punch the button to get it sent to me. And they're like, you changed states. Your tax ID is no longer valid. So I started calling the old company that I used to work for. And they're like, oh, you're calling the wrong number. You're calling the wrong division. You got to call these other people. And then so I just called a local chapter of the company I used to work for. And they're like, oh, we don't know the answer to that. You got to call And it's just like, holy shit, man. Can't anything fucking be easy? And then I come down to record. And I bought this new pack of micro SD cards. And I go to put it in my recording device. And guess what? It doesn't work. I bought a different brand than what I normally buy because the old brand doesn't work in another recording device I use. And I'm thinking, well, maybe if I get something different, then I've got a small window of time to podcast. I've got like this maybe hour or two window where I get to record alone and nobody's around, and put the fucking SD card in there and it doesn't work. So then I have to go and scramble and try to find another one. It's just like, and then I'm dealing with the fucking taxes too. I'm swearing a lot here. But this is a punk rock episode, so I'm allowed to swear. This one's explicit, bitches.
I've never heard you like this before.
Dude, I had what I can only describe as a anxiety attack the other day while I was recording with Fred. And this wasn't like I didn't know what to say next. It was more like I ended up in the corner of the room, crawled up in a ball. And I can't remember ever experiencing anything like that before. I mean, there have been times where it's like I sought out to do a podcast and it didn't work out, but usually that's when I'm alone. And then I can just push the stop recording button and go about my day and do it on another day, you know. You would be surprised maybe to realize how many podcasts I've actually recorded, how many episodes I've actually recorded that never made it to the cutting room floor. I've had a lot of really shitty episodes and I have chosen not to publish them. And I'm not sure. I've still not heard the one that I recorded with Fred, but literally I just had an anxiety attack and I just stopped talking. And I didn't know, again, crawled up in a ball in the corner. There was no finality to it. So I have still yet to hear it. And I'm not sure if I can make something from it, but I'll try. And I feel bad for Fred. He's a busy dude and he's very patient with me. And then I just shit the bed like that. And that's why I've kind of gone back to these solo recordings. This episode was supposed to be scripted and I have veered far from the path. And I'm telling you, man, it's like sometimes I sit down and the words flow out. I'm sure you've heard me talk about like how, ooh, look at this. I talked for an hour straight and I can't believe I did it. And there's other times when I sit down and nothing comes out. Or maybe like I talk for 5 minutes and it's like, durr. But that was scary, man. That like little anxiety attack or whatever it was scary. Embarrassing too. I was already kind of in a funk. I wasn't sleeping well at night. And the night before we recorded, I basically had little sleep. And then, I don't know. Does anybody else have dreams that keep them up all night? It seems to happen. I actually started getting healthy after the Super Bowl. You know, I started fasting again and got away from meat and stopped drinking. And anytime I do that, the first like week or two is just constantly filled with nightmares. And they just wake me up one after another, after another, after another. And I just get no sleep. And it's so frustrating. And I think that's kind of, at least in part, what led to my anxiety attack. Just the lack of sleep.
Caesar, talk about what you came here to talk about.
All right. Okay, so like a couple of weeks ago, I was just laying around the house, super anxious still, left over from that anxiety attack. And I was just like, oh man, I got to get out of the house. It was like the weekend, or my weekend, which is not a normal weekend. But it's like, I got to get out of the house. I got to find something that's going to pull me out of this winter funk, the winter blahs. I'm pretty certain that if I went to a doctor, I'd get diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder, but I've never actually done it. And they say, you know what, don't diagnose yourself. Don't go to WebMD and then diagnose yourself with some disorder. But I'm pretty sure that I have that one. And being curled up in the ball in the corner of a private room, probably an indication that there's something there. Holy crap, I'm a hot mess. I'm a train wreck. But anyways, I was trying to get out of that funk, and I ended up going to see a band that I had never heard of before. And like I said, sometimes when you do something different and you get out of your routine, it turns out to be amazing. Usually when I'm in a mood like that, I'd try to go hiking or something like that, but it was really cold out that day and it had just snowed a bunch in the Salt Lake Valley. And if it's cold and snowy in the valley, then that means the mountains, which are at a higher elevation, would be much colder and much snowier. And there's a risk of avalanche, and I just wasn't interested in dealing with that weather up there. So, you know, I just tried doing things like watching a movie, leaving the house, going to the gym, going to the library, going to a coffee shop, and I even went thrift shopping because I thought that'd be fun, but I was just like in and out in 5 minutes because there was nothing there I wanted to even look at it. There's nothing I needed, but there's not anything I even like, ooh, a record player, you know, wasn't even anything like that. I'm going to buy a house. Oh, look at me. Just like babbling like I used to before my anxiety attack. I can't even get to the fucking script. Oh, I guess I'm in a good mood. Maybe I got some rest last night. I don't know. But anyways, I tried so many things, but nothing was working to cure my blues. And I was just kind of out of ideas to try to find something that would cheer me up. But the day before, I had been driving through downtown, and I had to take the short detour because the main road was under construction. And while I was on this side road that the detour took me down, I noticed there was this music venue there called Metro Music Hall that I'd never seen before. Never knew it was there. It looked kind of cool from the outside, and I hadn't really explored any of Utah's music scene before, you know, since I moved to Salt Lake City almost a year prior to that. So 24 hours later, as I was sitting in this coffee shop in the suburbs, the possibility of going to see some live music kind of seemed like a good idea, maybe, you know? Maybe that would cheer me up. As I was working on stuff there at the coffee shop, I decided to do an online search for that place, for the Metro Music Hall. And so I checked out the schedule of the bands that were performing there, but I didn't really recognize any of the artists. The show seemed like it was a little bit expensive too. Like, I don't know, they were anywhere from $20 to $25, and the one that night was $25 just for entry before you get a drink or anything, and which didn't matter because I'm not drinking right now. You know, I was thinking about it, and I suppose that isn't that much for a live performance, but it is a lot of money to spend to watch somebody that you've never heard of before. I mean, I want to support artists. I want to support local artists. I want to support traveling artists. But they make it so hard for somebody that you've never even heard of before. It's like, I don't want to spend $25 to go see something I might hate. What if I go and I don't even like any of the bands? Would I have just spent a bunch of money on something that I don't even enjoy at all? Like, walk in the door and I want to get the fuck out like right away. And I'm swearing a lot on this one. But then I was thinking about it and it's like, you know what? Everything's expensive these days. And what am I comparing it against? Am I comparing it against what live shows used to cost? Or am I comparing it against what other things cost these days? I mean, paying $25 is no more expensive than like a meal at some place like Olive Garden after, you pay tax and tips. Not that I ever eat out at restaurants. And if I did, it certainly wouldn't be Olive Garden. But other people go out and they eat out all the time. They spend $25. It's like, hey, I want some spaghetti. $25. And what do you get? You just get broker and fatter. And by comparison, going to see a live show, you're not overeating. You're not, you're actually supporting artists. You're going out and you're having fun and you're not just sitting at a table, like gorging yourself on unhealthy food, You're actually like going out and experiencing things. And I guess, like I said before, maybe it's not that it's going to be amazing as much as it's going to be different, Like I'm new to the city, relatively. And this would be potentially a once in a lifetime experience for me, going to a venue that I'd never been to before, that I'll probably never go to again, or maybe never go to again, seeing artists that I've never heard before. I mean, even if all the bands are awful on this night, worst case scenario, I'll have had this brand new experience going to this place I've never been to before, doing something that I've never done before, going to this cool venue in this gentrified neighborhood, just right outside of downtown Salt Lake City. And, what's moving to a new city if you don't explore it, right? So I went to the website of that venue and I checked out the evening's lineup, and it was filled with Asian all-female punk rock bands. And I got to be honest with you, that sounded pretty interesting to me. But at the same time, I was just, as a single dude who was just kind of on my own that night, I was thinking, would it be weird for a guy who doesn't know a word of Japanese to just show up to this type of thing? And so, I looked up these bands on YouTube and they seemed pretty good, like something I might enjoy. But as the night rolled on, my anxiety got the best of me and I just decided to go to the library instead because I had to print out some things and there's some things that I could only do there. And so I drove over to the library out in the suburbs and I'm sitting there at like 8 o'clock at night and I thought, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to the concert. I packed up my things and I just drove downtown. And, I had this thought in my head as I was working there at the library and at the coffee shop. It's like, you know what? I'll take my laptop in or my journal. And if I get bored of the bands, I'll just sit at the table and write while I listen. But then I drove by the venue and I looked around and it was packed and there were so many cars and that I had to like park like 2 blocks away. And I was thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to be the kind of place where I can sit at a table and, get some work done while I listen to music. So I parked a couple of blocks away in the closest available spot and I walked through that bitter, chilly Utah cold and back to the ticket gate and I paid my $25. And when I got in, it was just, again, it was packed. I had to stand way in the back, at least at first. And throughout the concert, I kind of worked my way to the front as people moved in and out. There weren't even any tables to sit in at all. This was completely not what I expected. The place was just standing room only. Like there wasn't a table to be seen. And I thought, I don't get it. How do so many people know about this band from Japan? So much that the place would be this full. Man, I'm out of the loop. Maybe I don't know what's popular. This was not what I was expecting at all. In a good way, I think. The first act, a local band, had already played by the time I got there because I'm a horrible procrastinator and I was so indecisive that it took me forever to actually get to the concert. The second group of the night, though, the first one that I saw was called Drinking Boys and Girls Choir, which was an all-female South Korean punk rock trio. And I would say that they were about what I was expecting, maybe what I was hoping for. They were entertaining and fun and really enjoyable. Actually, you know what? Let me go read a little bit about them from their website. And actually, I was looking at this website earlier and it's a little bit confusing. There's like a history of the band and it kind of doesn't make sense, but I'll try to work my way through it. Drinking Boys and Girls Choir is a three-piece punk band from Daegu, Daegu, South Korea. Formed in 2013 when two drummers, MJ and Mina, shared a rehearsal space and decided to form a band. Mina switched to bass and guitarist Bandu. All right, this is where it starts to get confusing. There were some lineup changes over the years, and eventually they got to, I think, at least when I was there, it was like a three-piece. And in addition to these, to the South Korean drummer and the South Korean singer, they added a woman named Megan, who is Scottish. I think that was in last year, actually, in 2023. And so it was just those three. And with both of these bands that I'm about to talk about, they seem to be like jumping out of the gates like in early 2020, and the pandemic kind of grounded both of them and kind of ruined their launch almost. At least that's when they kind of were gaining traction, apparently, from reading these articles. Man, I wonder how many people were on a upward trajectory in their lives right before 2020, just like we were with the Cleveland podcast, my podcast before this. I wonder how many people were just getting ready to launch their artist career or their restaurant or their real estate investments or whatever, and just 2020 brought everybody down. But I think it affected greatly both of these bands I'm about to talk about. Well, the one I'm talking about now and the one I'm about to talk about. But anyways, they started out like in 2020 with the other band, Otoboke Beaver. Otoboke? I'm going to say Otoboke because that's the way I heard somebody else say it. Actually, let me look it up. You know what? I can't find it. I did hear one person say Otoboke Beaver. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. I'm just going to use that for the purposes of this podcast, of this episode. Yeah, anyways, Otoboke Beaver and Drinking Boys and Girls Choir kind of started out together there in 2020. And then I guess after the pandemic, they picked it up with a 2023, 2024 tour. And again, the Drinking Boys and Girls Choir, which was not a choir, and there were no boys, and it was just like a punk rock trio. Pretty good stuff. Actually, you know what it says here? If 2018 was the year K-pop finally reached the gates of the U.S. mainstream, Drinking Boys and Girls Choir are helping light a similar fire for K-punk. Apparently it's called K-punk, is what the website says. And then we get to the main act that came on stage, Otoboke Beaver. And holy crap. Holy crap. As good as the first band was, this one was next freaking level. You know what? I'm swearing. Next fucking level. Oh no. I'm waiting till the furnace goes off. Okay, I just had to leave for a second to go turn off the furnace. When the furnace comes on, it kind of screws with the sound, like the air rushing through the vents. And actually, I did that like a couple of weeks ago. I turned the furnace off to do a podcast, which never actually made it to, like I said earlier, never actually made it to the cutting room floor. And I went upstairs and I turned the furnace off and I woke up the next morning. Why the fuck is it so fucking cold out in this house? And I'm like, oh. After a while, I realized, that's right. I turned the furnace off and forgot to turn it back on. This is a swearing episode. Sorry. And you know what my favorite swear word is? In the true spirit of punk rock. Anyways, I was actually just looking a second ago. This Japanese dude was pronouncing the name, and it is Otoboke Beaver too. And he actually even screwed it up himself. So I think Otoboke is the correct pronunciation. And when they came on stage, it was like, holy shit. And I started looking at other people's reviews of the band, and everybody just kind of seems to have the same reaction, like, holy fucking shit. Did I tell you that my niece thinks I never swear? I have like two personalities. I have Clean Caesar, and I have like, when I'm all alone, I'm just like swearing all the time. If there's nobody around me, it's like, fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, fuck that. And this is kind of like, this is my all alone demeanor. I'm also very distracted today, which if I had known that I was going to be like this improvisational today, which I'm not normally, I wouldn't have written a script for this. Probably the script helps though. But anyways, everybody's just like blown away by this band. And even Dave Grohl chimed in. He must have seen them live or something. I'm not sure. But there was a quote in a couple places that I saw. But Dave Grohl, the drummer from Nirvana, and also he was the lead singer of the Foo Fighters, had this to say about them. "It'll blow your mind, dude. It's the most fucking intense shit you've ever seen." I can't disagree with him. They just came right out of the gates on stage, just started blowing everybody's mind. Oh, I was sitting there thinking, oh, I'm going to journal while I listen to music. Nope. This isn't some kind of write at your notebook at a table while enjoying their music kind of band. This was serious, powerful, thrashing, borderline like metal music. And that winter funk of a mood that I had been in, that I was trying to get out of, this was the cure for it. It was impossible to watch this performance and not smile. A mosh pit opened up near the stage, and I'm not really a mosh pit kind of guy, so as people crashed into each other in front of us, those of us who didn't really want to be part of it just kind of migrated a little further back from the stage. And people were still kind of being a little annoying, like trying to get to the mosh pit and like pushing through without like, like, hey man, we're in the back. We don't want to be part of the mosh pit. So treat us like normal people, not like your mosh pit buddies. But hey, it was a punk rock show. I knew it was a punk rock show, and I knew people, I didn't realize how rowdy people were going to be, but I should have known it was a punk rock show. And what the fuck did I expect, right? There was one point where like the crowd started breathing in and out. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like expanded like a lung. And then right as the song started, everybody just like went like bodies slamming into each other in the center of the audience. And it was as annoying as it was to be pushed around. It was fun to look around and see how everybody was enjoying it, how it was just like this giant party and everybody was having fun. There was a guy standing in front of me, and he had come with somebody else, and it just kind of seemed like the other person had dragged him to the show, like kind of reluctantly almost. And he turned around and he said, "Thank you for convincing me to come to this show. I thought it might be fun, but I had no idea it was going to be like this." And he just repeated, "Thank you." I was kind of worried before I came in that the crowd was going to be predominantly like young Asian people and that maybe I would feel kind of out of place. But no, people of all ages showed up to enjoy the show. And I quickly realized that a lot of people were already familiar with this band and they knew exactly what to expect. And just like that guy who was thanking his friend for dragging him along, that's exactly how I felt. That feeling that I was trying to shake, that grumpiness, it was gone in just like a matter of minutes within this band first starting to perform. I was actually looking at a YouTube video in the comments section, and somebody named @Areiviel, Areiviel. This was a Otoboke Beaver video in the comments section, and he said, "This cured my depression and my existential crisis." I just watching the video, so that's exactly how I felt too. It was so much fun. It was impossible not to smile while being in this crowd. And it didn't exactly hit me right away what I was seeing. I mean, at first I was like, oh, this is way cooler than I thought it would be. And by a couple of songs in, I was just like, holy shit, this is epic. That $25 that I was worried about wasting, not an issue. This was not only worth it, but it was possibly one of the best live shows I've ever seen to date. Not that I'm a concert connoisseur, but this was one of the cool ones. The musicianship was so tight and they just kind of mixed it up so much. Like they'd go from ba, 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 to like the slower downbeat, and then they go back and ba, 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 ba. And I'm not even sure how they didn't get lost when playing together, because like nobody that I could tell, nobody was counting off the songs. Like nobody was doing that. They just went right into it and everybody was immediately on the same page. And it was just flawless. And I just kind of have to imagine that it comes from years of working together like they have, and that they just kind of know what's coming next without even having to say it out loud. If I remember right, I was reading about them after the show, and I believe that they all met at a music school, which makes sense because there was so much talent between the four of them. Let's see. I'm going to look at the website right now. I'm probably going to butcher these names. But the lead singer's name was Ako, and the guitarist's name is Yo-Yo, and the bassist is Hiro, and the drummer is Keho. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing all that right. I don't know. I can mess up 2-syllable words. This band was melodic with catchy hooks, and the pace of this hard-driving punk rock music it was so fast. But that didn't mean that they didn't do some screaming too. Like, I think I noticed every member of the band at some point was screaming, like, "Ah!" at one point or another. It was incredible. There was so much energy coming from these petite little Japanese women. It was kind of surreal, and I almost had a hard time believing what I was seeing. The lead singer, in true punk rock style, would stick out her middle finger for entire songs at a time, giving a great big fuck you to her biggest fans, and everybody loved it. At one point, the singer was doing kind of like an intro talking thing before a song, and one of the audience members just kind of yelled out, and she goes, "Shut up!" And the audience just went wild. It was so funny. Everybody started laughing. And the other ladies in the band were amazing too. They were all super into it. Again, every one of them was this amazingly skilled musician. Everyone was super into what they were doing. And if you watch some of the YouTube videos surrounding this band, people who are reviewing them, everybody just kind of has the same reaction. Everybody's just blown away. The drummer, hard hitting, fast. I think I just was looking at one guy who's like, I'm going to quit playing drums because I'm never going to be able to play like her. The guitar player, she was the most vocal in between songs. And while it was a little hard to tell what she was saying through her broken English, nobody really cared. Everyone just yelled out in approval anytime she spoke. She could have been saying, "You guys are idiots," and we would have cheered anyway. I think we all at one point heard her say that Salt Lake's very pretty. Salt Lake City's very pretty. The snow and the mountains, which, I agree, as a kind of a newbie here. And then she said how cold it was, and everybody in the audience just started roaring laughing. I didn't laugh. I agreed with her. It's too cold. I miss Florida. Anyways, and the bass player, she was incredible too. She was really into it. Just so cool. All four of them just super awesome. Anyways, at the end of the show, the guitar player pulled out a inflatable beaver, like a gigantic pool raft or something, and she just kind of crowd surfed across the audience on the beaver, which was hilarious. I think I was watching a YouTube video the other day of one of her other shows, and she fell off the beaver and almost went head first into the crowd. She was standing up on the beaver on top of the crowd. It was so cool. This was like the music that I grew up loving. Maybe like a System of the Down, where it's and then it slows down, and it slows down. Or, maybe some of the less popular, more angry punk rock tracks from a Nirvana album or their early Hole albums. Had the energy of Stone Cold Crazy, Yo! From Metallica, or Sakamiki Hiko by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was just that raw, fun, untamed, unfiltered, just energy. But looks-wise, they kind of reminded me of the Donnas, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Donnas who did Take It Off, Take It Off. The drummer, they could have been Japanese versions of the Donnas, visually, who I actually went to see in Birmingham as well. So that was another one of my favorite shows. Another all-girl band. I don't know, man. I just felt like this concert brought something out of me that I almost assumed was gone. I can go back and listen to my old favorite high energy music, but as a music lover, I just want people to keep creating more and more new great stuff, new powerful stuff. This is the kind of music that you want to listen to in order to get yourself hyped up to go work out, Ever since I saw this band play live, I listen to it every morning before work, and it just puts me in this same mood, that puts the same smile on my face that it did that night of the concert. And what a great way to start out the day, just that happy and smiling and energetic. I don't think I understood a single lyric of their music that entire night, though, since a lot of it was either in Japanese or broken English, but it didn't matter. The music, the performance, it just kind of transcended the language barrier, and the smiles on the faces of all the people in the audience made it clear that everyone in the building was just having a great time. It was just incredible. Again, on the YouTube video of one of their songs, Vic Cowboy 999 says, "Hardcore punk isn't dead. It just moved to Japan." And I've seen similar comments other places. Why are they doing what we used to do? Why aren't we doing it? Why is Asia resurrecting the kind of music that I love and we are not here in the United States? I couldn't help but looking up their songs on the drive home. after the show. And then some more at home as I was going to sleep, which is hard to sleep when you're pumped up on punk rock music. Then some more when I woke up the next day. A couple of my favorites so far that I've found are Don't Light My Fire. I think that's one of the more popular ones. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. Anata Washabi, which you can find on YouTube if you want to check it out. And you should. I'm recommending this. I'm not just doing this for shits and giggles. Or maybe I am. Who knows? As fun as the music is, as good as the music is, the music videos even make it better. Because just like the ornery looks on these girls' faces as they wreak havoc and total chaos, just it makes it even better. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from their website. Are a punk rock garage quartet from Kyoto, Japan. The band's name is taken from a local love hotel, and they describe themselves as Japanese girls' knockout or pound cake band. I don't know what that means. Formed at Kyoto University's music club, the band consists of Akarinen, lead vocal and guitar, Yo-Yo Yoshi, guitar and vocals, Hiroshan, bass and vocals, and Keihokis, drums and vocals. Not sure if I got that right. Akko's off-kilter, self-taught, compositional, and confrontational performance skills, together with the band's incredible musicianship, make for a thrilling and unmissable live act. And again, it talks about how they tried to launch in 2020 and the pandemic took it down. Talks about where they've been performing over the last few years. Talks about their album Super Champon. So I doubt this episode will be out by the time they get finished with their East Coast tour of the United States. But if you love music and you get the chance to check them out sometime, I highly recommend it. And it's so wild to me that I just took this random chance and I went out and I watched this band just for the sake of trying to get out of the house and fight the winter blahs. And I found something that I enjoyed this much. Last year, or maybe it was a couple years ago at this point, I did an entire episode on the state of modern music and how hard it can be to find artists who make songs that I love. And this experience makes me wonder, how much have I been missing out on? Like, theoretically, if I were to go out and see random bands every weekend, would I find music that I enjoy this much all of the time? Or was this just an awesome fluke? I don't know. But I think I'm going to keep looking. I haven't been to a lot of live shows lately. Maybe there's better stuff out there than I think there is. You've been listening to The Great Big Intergalactic. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show. The Great Big Intergalactic can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Apple iTunes, and anywhere else that podcasts can be heard. If social media is your thing, you can follow the program on Facebook or Twitter. If you enjoy the show, upvote, share, like, and subscribe. Whenever and wherever those things can be done. If you'd like to send feedback, the easiest way to do that is to email the show at tgbiuniverse@gmail.com, TGBI as in the Great Big Intergalactic, or you can leave a voicemail at 216-200-7940. Contributions could include written feedback, audio submissions, voicemails, or potentially even live guests. It was great having you today, and see you next time. Why is this so cold in here? Oh, that's right, the furnace.